Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASU strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
A very good morning to you and welcome to Global Morning. My name is Godwin Sunday. Of course, this is Friday. Like we do say, thank God it's Friday. The Tax Team Friday. Of course, I'm not doing this alone. I'm doing this with the phenomenal, the one and only, the most amazing Jumai Manson. Good morning, Jumai.
Oh my goodness. All of this hype just for me. Good morning, Godwin. How are you doing today?
Very well.
So the phenomenal. Wow. Oh my goodness. Thank you.
Okay.
Amazing. Thank you.
Of course, it's well deserved. Of course, you're amazing.
Oh, I'm blushing now. Oh, because it's Friday. But they say black people don't blush. It's only people the white people that blush because they have rosy cheeks. But we are dark skinned, we don't blush because you can't see the rosy cheeks. We don't have it.
Well, whatever that means, I don't know what rosy cheeks is all about. I don't know. I didn't see that coming. I don't even know where the rosy cheeks emerged from. Perhaps I should start looking at myself for having rosy cheeks.
You're light skinned.
I should have a rosy cheek in that stance.
It shows that you're blessed. But it's great to be here. It's a beautiful Friday. It's a time to just relax and understand that the weekend is just around the corner and a lot of good things are happening when it comes to, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, unlike, us that we do not have that weekend to just relax and all of that. But as Godwin has mentioned, I am Jumai Manson and it's great to be here on Global Morning.
All right, just before we begin the conversations around what we have lined up for you, because we have a lot of activities lined up for you this morning. First, please encourage you to please go and follow us on our various social media handle currently showing on your screen using at Global TV NG. And you can also download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app from your Android and iOS devices to also keep track of our broadcast, because today it's fully loaded. A lot of things to talk about around the country.
Yes, it is.
And today, quite against what Ohaneze have said, that the number of 380,000 students are going to be having a receipt in JAM. And
but for me, it's a step in the right direction. I'm grateful to the fact that the registrar is actually taking he's actually taking responsibility for what happened. You heard about the girl that committed suicide with rat poison, unfortunately, there, and so many. I give an instance of my family friend who in her various in the CBT center, and then the next thing there was no data to function, and when they tried, but I am happy that he came out and he took responsibility. He shows that he's a father, he's empathetic, and the sympathy that is involved in all of it, because it's not fair. A lot of things that happen in those various centers, and I'm very grateful for the receipts, really.
Well, a lot of people will argue, will say otherwise about the receipt, because for many it's not a welcome development. Because when you finish writing JAM, you go and take your post-UTMEs, and we'll begin to ask salient question: what's the difference between JAM and post-UTME?
Really?
Why don't one serve for the other? Because these are overlapping functions.
Very
you
true.
Still pay certain amount of money to go and write JAM, or you still pay a certain amount of money to pick the forms from universities and also pay your transport down to the university.
Yes.
And the tendency of even gaining admission is very slim in Nigeria. We have a situation where we have more of a quota system that has been characterized by VC's list. And most of the courses we do in universities right now are tailored towards who you know versus how you know it,
or how you got it.
I was sharing with Obasi on Wednesday when we were together on the show. I did say that if you look at this whole matter critically, it calls for concern.
Yes,
when you have young people that are very energetic in Nigeria, when Nigerians want to get things going, they do it to the end. We know how to get things going, and you get to Faculty of Law, and it's as if it's for a selected few. people score 300 and above, and they're not giving admission. Then you find somebody that scored less than 300, and he's already in school, he's studying law, and one begin to ask serious questions like, how did this happen? Now, but we did our own research, we found out that it comes through what they call the VCs list, which is like the back door to enter into a university. So from the VCs list, you have the Senate list, you have the governor's list, you have the chieftaincies list, you have the local government list, and you have various lists in universities. I don't know which one I used in gaining admission, but I know that I saw my name on the newspaper. That's how I knew I could get admission. Yeah, then these names will be published on newspapers. So you go through national dailies, you see your name on the newspaper. I didn't see that coming.
I'm just kidding.
So you all of those put together. Now when you get to College of Medicine, it's almost the same thing. You're coming through the list. I was saying that I think that again, that people that study law in this country, they are selected because they are usually very fine. I don't know how correct that is.
Yeah,
but
you can see that.
On the black and white, you see they're looking very
But you know the thing is,
and they have pride. I see they want to settle the quarrel between God and devil.
oh my goodness, God.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is what it is. This is how it has been run from the beginning, from inception, and that's what you see. You see various individuals of prominence giving that particular leverage to actually have their own candidate. It shows that you know how it is in Nigeria. Sometimes, and I think it's just favor, because sometimes you might have 145. I know someone that had 145 and read law, like seriously back in the day, that is. But at the same time, it's just prominence, and you know, in Nigeria we love to give respect to leadership when it comes to giving you that aura that hey, you are important, so give us your candidate, let us help him into university. Well, I think that's what it is now, but I think times are changing. It's becoming a bit difficult when it comes to things like that. It's not, you have to make the qualification. I know maths, English, and theory or something. It depends on either you're going into, you know, either like you mentioned, law or, you know, engineering, geology, and all of that. So it depends on it now. But, you know, it's still the same old, same old. We all have to give preference to leadership and all of that. But going forward, I think with this now, and some people will say, God, we see because that girl committed suicide, that's why all these things are coming up and all of that. Did you not see that you're supposed to do the needful evil? Did you have to allow it to get to that point that someone had to commit suicide before you decided to come out and say that there should be a receipt? But for me, I looked at that really, it's two ways for me. I know that some children cannot take failure. Kids like that cannot bear the fact that they failed. They can't handle it because of, you know, emotionally, mentally, and all of that. Their psyche can't actually take it. But I think as parents, we should learn to teach our children that it can never be smooth sail all the time. Condolences to that family, but really, I think this is an eye opener for families to teach their children that hey, failures will come in life.
Failure is also part of the process.
It's part of the process of growing. You have to teach your children. And parents, I know for as much as you want to be hard on your children when they do not do well, at the same time you're being hard, you're pulling them and telling them, I'm being hard because I want you to do better. But understanding that failures happen, reseat, you can actually reseat again. Not that I'm promoting it, but know that this is all a process. You cannot win all the time. That's why when you see kids that cry when they are not first. They were first last year and then they were not first. You see them crying, falling into depression. No. Explain to them that hey, you must accept it. When someone else wins, accept it. Shake their hand and say, hey, congratulations, well deserved, and move on. I think if we had that, we'll have an amazing political system here in Nigeria, that people will just accept defeat and say, okay, it's all part of the process. Let me try it. Let me shake hands and not just and walk away. There's sometimes when you just need to walk away and do better to improve yourself. So I think parents have a lot to do, and I'm going to talk about it on Insight today. Not today, that is next week, but we should teach our children that failure is part of the process of growing and being more experienced in life. And for a child to commit suicide. You know, I was talking with some of our colleagues and they said, what is that child thinking about? What are you thinking about? But people take this, it's a very serious.
But recall that it's not our first time to write JAMB. I think it's our second time of sitting for the JAMB. She's called 190.
True.
It's really sad.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. It's really sad. But I'm not talking about her now. I'm talking about other kids, that they should understand that it's part of the process, an experience of growing. Don't be too hard on yourself.
I know,
You do better.
I know the
Just-
rate of teenagers that were thrown into depression this year based on the outcome of JAM. It's very alarming.
No, it is.
A lot of them were depressed.
Very depressed.
Because some would say that they didn't see this coming. All the preparations that was put into the job, everything. They had sleepless night. For the first night, they were reading all through.
Books.
Okay, books. It comes with preparations like that. So it's a sad one. But our hearts, like you've said, our heart goes out to the families
No, it goes
of the young lady that took her life, the young girl that took her life. All right, Juma, let's move even to something even more pressing of the national discourse right now this morning, and it's the issue around the bill to jail eligible Nigerians who fail to vote. It has scaled the second reading.
When I saw that, I was really shocked. I would not be surprised. Like, seriously,
Well,
how would you know what happened to right to vote? Like, seriously.
I was coming to that point when I wanted to ask the House of Representative members how they were able to know who voted and who did not vote.
Exactly.
First, we have a BVAS, an electronic means of voting that is
True.
semi-not working.
Semi-not working.
Let me not say
Very
it's
good.
not working. Let me say it's seemingly not working or semi-not working. Now that's on the one hand. Again, we have a system in this country where we have epileptic power supply in
Yes,
various
we do.
parts of the country. Also, we have this poor internet service across board, not just in Abuja, but in interior part of Nigeria. Take that conversation to far Gombe, take that conversation to far Yobe, Maiduguri, Sokoto, inside Kano, the deep down extreme of Kano. You take that to Kaduna, you go straight to Taraba, return back to Benue. There's a place there in Benue where they don't even have network at all.
At all.
Yeah, so I was in a place after Vandakia in Benue State, and you begin to wonder, are you sure I'm in Nigeria? You get to Obudu local government, there's almost a similar thing before, as if you're going to the ranch. You find you almost go black out, and there's some networks that I didn't find in the whole of Obudu till I left Obudu local government for 2 weeks. And that is, I don't want to mention the brand, but you won't find network of that magnitude. Now, when you begin to go, thank God for those of us that have multiple SIM cards, like 2 SIM cards, so you can be able to subvert. So, but then it's internet service provided is poor, electricity is still poor, and we're talking about voters, compulsory voters, election. I think that for now we should set our priorities right as a country.
Very important.
Where we begin to talk about issues that borders on humanity. Because if these are just basics,
Basic necessities.
this is just basic electricity. Give Nigerians
Basic
electricity.
necessities.
Ensure that there is constant power supply.
That is all we ask.
If you give Nigerians constant power supply, you'll be amazed with what Nigerians can do with
Very
power
true,
supply.
very true.
If you give Nigerians internet and regulate the internet, no challenge, but ensure that Nigerians have constant internet, they uninterrupted. Even here in Abuja, sometimes when it rains, you discover that even the cable stations around Abuja are missing. You tune into a cable station that you paid for because it is raining. They'll be telling you that you cannot access this channel because the weather is not stable. I don't know if you've come across all of that.
course.
It is really sad. I think that the Nigerian House of Rep, with all due respect to the House and its authorities, so please look into more pressing issues. The issue around voting, it's a fundamental right, enshrined in Chapter 4.
You know, I mentioned that I said it's a fundamental human right.
Yeah.
If I can decide not to, or I can decide to vote. It depends. And the thing is, like you mentioned, there are more pressing issues. We have employment to think about, for instance, unemployment. We have inflation. Like you mentioned, we have tariff. We have a lot of transportation. We have a lot to think about. Our roads, some of our roads are nothing to write home about. And we have all of these, healthcare, a lot of issues that are more pressing than all of it. And the truth is, we do not even have a monitoring system. How do you want to come up with the data that shows that this particular few did not go? And how would you pinpoint and know them?
It won't be surprised, Juwai, that even in this stance, the Nigerian, with what we did with national anthem, the passage of the bill of the national anthem, and also all of that, you won't be surprised that this will also go in just 2 weeks. You won't be surprised.
We have a lot to do when it comes to issues like this, and that's why most Nigerians are not taking some of these policies seriously. Some of these reforms that you hear, they just laugh and say, "Let's see how well this will go." People are just, reforms where you come together. There's always a city, there's always an amount that is given at that point. So people just want to come together, sit and talk about these issues. But at the same time, we need to look critically on this. There are lots of pressing issues. All these things that Godwin mentioned are, they are basic amenities that are needed for Nigeria. It's our right.
In 21st century, we are still clamoring for power supply.
Exactly. Like yes, the 21st century, and yet we're still clamoring and begging to have power supply, which is really unfortunate. But the government...
When you visit a country like the UK...
Don't even go there.
No, not just... when you get to UK at
UK
first...
is far. Go to Cotonou and see what's happening.
Let's say, okay, because we're in the same continent, let's just take it a bit further.
Okay.
So when you get to UK, at first, we had a conference, and you have to start looking for a way to wake up by 4 a.m. to rush to go and press your clothes, press your shirt so that they won't seize the light in UK. I'm like, God, what's up? What are you doing? So they'll take the light.
Oh my God, the mindset is just...
So I said, God will stop. They don't do that here.
Really?
I said, they don't do that here. It rang the bell, like, they don't do that here. No, it was funny, sarcasm as it sounds, but it was.
Oh, really?
I wanted to press my clothes by 4 a.m. I was up to start, preparations. You have to leave the house by 5, so that to beat the traffic in Lagos or in Abuja to metropolitan cities.
The mindset is already made up.
When you get to some countries, you will be looking very strange. Like, okay, this is not the way things are done.
No, you see the difference. The lapses are there. You see the difference that they have it easy. Theirs is just seamless. They don't have stress when it comes to all of these things. Places like even very close. Looking at not even I'm trying to mention this country close to the UK. Oh God, I'll remember after the program. It just skipped my mind. I was just talking about it. But at the same time, it's just unfortunate that this is where we are in Nigeria, and it's not supposed to be. Really, a lot of issues, pressing issues that we need, basic amenities. It's, for goodness sake, it's a right, not a privilege. I think we need to understand that. But let's quickly go on a very quick break, and up next is the newspaper review segment. Do not go anywhere. It's Global Morning on Global Television. Stay tuned.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
A Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
disbursing upkeep of 20,000 naira.
Know that you cannot talk about a healthy nation if you don't have means to produce your own in addition to importing.
The CG is the principal actor of this because it's within her jurisdiction. Minister is a supervisor.
That we must run in accordance with the Constitution of CAN, where you have just a single time.
The human factor, you have the infrastructural factor, then you have the mechanical factors.
The Senate, with all due respect, they were so hasty in passing that judgment.
The statement I'm about to make is we're not even aware.
That is the future.
You have to be aware before you can begin to be prepared.
Do you know that global television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch global television real-time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to global television.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into variety of current affairs and topics.
A Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
All right, now you're welcome back, and it's Global Morning, and yes, it is the newspaper review segment. At about this point, we'll start with the first paper of the day, and it's the Daily Trust. Below the nameplate of the Daily Trust, we have right here, it says, recharging Lake Chad, artificial to war against terror in North East, and that's from the CDS. From Bandits Den to Hall of Fame, Yaru girls excel in jam. Salah, prices of rams may go up as Niger bans livestock export. And of course, the Star Story there says Nigerians reject Rep's proposal for compulsory voting. And the writer there says lawmakers recommend 6 months jail, 100,000 naira fine for defaulters. And below the foot of the Daily Trust, it says APC, PDP, LP in coalition against Tinubu, and that's Atiku. And it says gunmen invade palace, abduct traditional ruler in Kogi. Dropping food prices, others reduces inflation to 23.71%. 8 killed, houses burnt in another attack in Plateau. And you can find that read on page 12 of the Daily Trust. You can go out and get yourself a copy to be well abreast with the news making round. We're talking about being arrested if you do not go out and vote, and 100,000 naira fine. Really, I had to laugh because I'm sure a lot of Nigerians are sharing the same opinion as myself, and of course Godwin. But let's just see how far this will go. If it's something that is going to be swept under the carpet.
I thought you didn't say that part of the story. I thought you didn't say that part of the story. Because in my mind I was saying so Juma is arrested.
Don't say who told you I didn't.
You'll be doing essential service. Of course, you're a journalist. Sometimes you don't have that time to go.
Exactly.
You'll be compiling reports from the various states, and reporters will be giving us feeds of what's going on in various states across the country.
Exactly. And let's suppose another story that caught my eye on page 12 of the Daily Trust is 8 killed, houses burnt, another attack in Plateau. Of course, Jos Plateau. The unrest in Plateau is still resurfacing. It's just unfortunate that issues like this, it's just unfortunate that we've not gotten rest when it comes to places like Plateau, Benue, and all of these terror places. But hopefully the needful is done, and there'll be a step in the right direction. Now, dropping food prices, others reduces inflation to 23.71%. Well, that's good news. Well, since there's dropping food prices, a lot of individuals are happy. And of course, Salah, please, whatever they're going to do, please let all the Muslim faithfuls, I'm sure they're going to buy, because definitely they know the Salah, they know the parole. Everyone is excited when it comes to Salah ram. So of course, prices of rams may go up as Niger bans livestock exports. Of course, that's not really good news, but we hope prices of ram will not go high.
Governor Bago should please do something. Because I can't be deprived of small Salah ram, and I'm still deprived of big Salah. I can't be deprived of the small Salah ram, and I'm still deprived of the big Salah ram.
Exactly.
Please, it's very important.
It's very
that ram is very important.
It's very important. But hopefully the prices will drop so that a lot of individuals can afford it. It's very important. It's a symbol, really. It's a significance to the big Salah. Hopefully, by the grace of God, it will be dropped. And then over now we have the next paper, and of course Godwin will be giving us a rundown of the next paper.
All right, Juma, so let's get punchy this morning as usual. It's the Punch newspaper, and above the nameplate here we have Tinubu joined world leaders at Pope's inauguration. Service chief tore military bases after terror attacks. APC fumes as Atiku names parties in anti-Tinubu coalition. Now, just by the right side beside the nameplate here, we have parent fears WAEC, UTME overlap as receipt begins today. The Star Story here comes with a kicker that says economic strain. Inflation surges above 30% in Abuja, 10th state. The writer says that food inflation hits 51.8% in Benue amid persistent insecurity. OPS laments rising prices. You can find all of that story on the Star Story there on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. All right, we have a story here that says the National Assembly divided as compulsory voting bill advances. 5 arrested over 2-week-old baby sale. You can find that story, very pathetic it is, but you can find that story on page 4 of the Vanguard of the Punch newspaper this morning. And the last on the Punch newspaper, LASIEC writes INEC over 3 LP factions in Lagos. What an interesting read it is. But to find out more about what's trending even in Lagos, Nigeria, and by extension the inflation in Abuja and other 10 states, you want to find out what where the 10 states are located and who are members of this 10 state and who are the governors. What is causing the inflation in this 10 state? Well, of course, you can go out there and get yourself a copy of the Punch newspaper this morning. Next is the Vanguard newspaper. Of course, Jumai is in charge of Vanguard.
All right, now over now to Vanguard newspaper. And above the nameplate here, it says here, inflation rate. Let's quickly go on a very quick break. Program continue. All right, now you're welcome back to Global Morning. Apologies for that break in transmission. It was just due to circumstances beyond our control. And now we're going to continue with the next paper, which is the Vanguard newspaper. And it says here, inflation rate eases to 23.71%. Benway records highest food inflation. And it's so sad because Benway is the food basket of the nation. And then here now, it says 2027, APC, PDP, LP involved in anti-Tinubu coalition. And that's from Article. And you can find that read on page 9 of the Vanguard. Pope Leo XIV invites Tinubu to inauguration in Rome. And that read is on page 8. And the Star Story says, which is a special report, says ways out of banditry, insurgency by ex-generals, security experts. And we have some riders there, and it says, we need 1 million-man strong military force to tackle the menace. Brigadier General Bello. And this next rider there, of course, Major General Bello retired, international diplomacy not working in Nigeria's favor. And that's from Major Efezom. And then, of course, the next says, address soldiers fatigue, Major Olorunbe. And you can find that special report on page 5 of the Vanguard. And here it says UTME glitches, Obi Ezekwesili, others worry over impact on students and, of course, parents. Yes, for as much as a lot of individuals that were affected by this, a lot too will be affected because some that their wards did extremely well and they didn't have any glitch when it comes to that. So we're just going to sit back and watch how the balance will be created in all of this. And here it says defections. We don't want Nigeria becoming one-party state, APC, and you can find that read on page 8 of the Vanguard. Bandits attacked adopt Kogi monarch from palace. That read on page 6. And for sports lovers out there, you can find your read on page 36. That says under 20 AFCON, South Africa's Ahmed Jita stop flying Eagles' 8th title dream. And of course, below all of that, we have, of course, the cartoon. So you can just go out and get yourself a copy of the Vanguard to be well abreast with stories making round. And the next is the Daily Times.
All right, the Daily Times newspaper this morning comes with quite few headlines. But let's begin with above the nameplate here. It says, Group demands sack of Education Minister, JAMB Registrar over UTME crisis. Now, below the nameplate, we have, which is a Star Story also, we have Tinubu backs Mali, calls for West African unity. You can find that read on page 2 of the Daily Times newspaper. MDAs should patronize locally manufactured vehicles, Senator Ndubweze. Well, you can find that read on page 2 also of the Daily Times newspaper. Lagos debunks report on civil servants absconding after foreign training. Well, that's quite interesting, but of course you can go out there and get yourself a copy.
Really?
It's a bit complicated, so
really
it is.
How complicated is it?
When
They
you
send
hear-
you on a foreign trip and then you decide to abscond. Really?
we don't want to say that Nigerians abscond when we send us foreign trip. We can't.
Really?
We can't let's not demarket our country to say that we.
goodness.
Let's agree with Lagos State that this is false. It is fallacious and it's incorrect.
Okay.
To say that Nigerians abscond when they travel abroad, so that the windows for international trainings and all of this will not be closed against
Exactly.
Nigeria.
But you know, no comment.
But it's good that we know and we leave the comments. Well, it's an interesting read.
But a very interesting read. Please go out and get yourself
Go just grab a copy of the Daily Times so
Please do.
where the perspective Lagos State government is coming from. All right, moving on, we'll go to West African security and political economy. We'll find that on page 12 of the Daily Times newspaper. Foundations call for more women in elective appointive positions. Well, you can find all of that read in the Daily Times newspaper. And that's just about it with the Daily Times newspaper. The next is This Day newspaper, and Jumai will be taking us through the This Day.
All right. This Day newspaper, above the name plate, it says NUPRC to raise Nigerians' active oil rigs from 36 to 50 by end of 2025. And we have two riders there. And the Star story says inflation declines to 23.71% amid lower food energy prices. And Tinubu heads to Rome on Pope Leo XIV's invitation with bragging rights of 62% Christian appointees. And basically that's all on This Day newspaper. But of course, I know a lot of individuals who I'm sure God will want to talk about heading to Rome on Pope Leo XIV's invitation with bragging rights of 62% of Christian appointees. Well, to show that we are all one when it comes to issues, whether political, religious, we're all one. It doesn't matter what religion you are, as long as you're able to, function and bring professionalism and do the right thing. It doesn't matter. So we're all one in this. Whether you're Muslim, you're Christian, we're all one in all of this.
And Nigeria comes first in all of this.
First, exactly.
Yeah, so, and even Nigeria comes second for me because humanity comes first, and so we're first human before we become Nigerians.
Exactly.
So when you begin to treat people as being human, so what you won't want to give out to people, what you want to give out to people, you'll be cautious because knowing fully well that this person is a fellow human being.
Yes.
It unlike what the evolutionary theory by Charles Darwin that came out to say that man evolved from what they call Australopithecus africanus. Then we now move to Homo habilis, then Homo erectus, then to Homo sapien. I don't know how correct that evolutionary theory is, or the Big Bang theory, all of those evolutionary. But we are where we are right now as human.
Yes, we are.
And we should be able to give human treatment in
humanity
all
is very important.
Because when you go out there and see the way people treat fellow human beings, you begin to wonder
what is going on.
After 6 feet, what next? We're all going to go back to the earth where you came from.
Exactly.
So you should learn to give people cordial respect, mutual respect. I think that's where I want to leave that conversation.
Exactly. And of course, the next paper is the Nigerian Tribune, and Godwin will be taking us through that.
Let's run through the Nigerian Tribune here. It says, just above the nameplate, Nigerians' inflation eases to 23.71% NBS. That's coming from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. Well, whatever this means, that it's easing from 23.71%. That's quite interesting. All right, but you can go out there and get yourself a copy. You can find that on page 6 of a Tribune paper. ECOWAS Court orders Nigerian to release man detained for 16 years without trial. Well, It's unbelievable. 16 years without trial. But
that's a lot.
It is. That's a principle of fair hearing. I don't think it has been established even in that case. But let's move on. Elections. Reps push for 6 months imprisonment, 100,000 naira fine on non-voting citizens. Every time I read that portion, Jumai Manson comes to my head.
Why is Jumai Manson coming to your head? What did Jumai Manson do?
But perhaps if you're not voting on that day, I don't know.
I'm about
somebody will just need to pay the 100,000 shot. Well, UTMA reps to probe poor performance. It comes with a rider to provide allocation to construction of CBT centers in 774 local governments in 2026 budget. Advises board to release results of under 16 candidates. Well, you can find all of that read on page 3 of the Tribune newspaper. Odoo's investment company posts 82 billion naira comprehensive revenue, declares 581 million dividends. You can find all of that read on the business side of the Tribune newspaper. Or your government to deliver secular road in 2027. Well, interesting read also coming from Oyo State, which is gradually becoming a super hub in Nigeria. Sheyi Makinde, kudos to the governor for your state. Well, court convicts 10 Thai sailors. Ship slams $5.3 million fine over 32.9 kilogram of cocaine trafficking. Okay, you can find that read on page 22 of the Tribune newspaper. Kidnappers seize ransom. Bearers in Ondo demand 30 million naira for APC chair. 2 orders release. Well, you can find that also on page 5. Bauchi governor insulted by late father threatened to slap me, foreign minister. Bauchi governor insulted by late father threatened to slap me, foreign affairs minister. What does this got to do with the relevant of Nigeria? Just a thought in my head. Yeah. Well, I hope I didn't say that loud.
You did.
Okay, it's okay.
No comment.
Well, again, PDP and NPP lose 3 reps to APC. APC National Chairman Ganduje witnesses defection. And that's just about it with the newspapers for today. Do well to go out there and get yourself a copy of various newspapers, even as we've been able to talk about them this morning.
All right, with all of that, up next is the AM News on Global Morning this beautiful morning. Stay tuned, do not go anywhere. And like Godwin mentioned, do not forget to go out and get yourself copies of the newspaper to stay abreast with issues and making rounds. Do not go anywhere. Stay tuned. AM News on Global Television. Coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Jumai Manson. A quick reminder that Global Television's on DSTV Channel 365 and Star Times Channel 276. You can download the Global TV Nigeria mobile app for Android and iOS devices to keep track of our broadcasts. Now the news in full. The Senate has approved the confirmation of 5 resident electoral commissioners for the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. The confirmation followed the presentation of a report by the chairman, Senate Committee on Electoral Matters, Simon Lalong. Ramsey Enoch Agbo has details.
The total sum of 1,783,823,708,392 naira only.
After the debate, senators unanimously passed the bill for second reading and thereafter referred to the Senate Committee on FCT to revert back in 1 week.
What we need to do as the State House of Assembly of the FCT is to keep on tracking revenues and the utilization of those revenues.
You need budgetary support to sustain the infrastructural development that we have seen. And last year, when we debated the bill, I pointed out that the only way we can bring high cost of land down is by opening up new areas.
The bill, according to the Senate, seeks to, among other things, address infrastructure development and job creation, as well as other critical sectors like education, health, agriculture, etc.
For the service of the Federal Capital Territory Abuja for the financial year commencing from 1st day of January and ending on the 31st day of December 2025. Second reading read.
A breakdown of the bill shows that 150 billion naira is for personnel cost, 343 billion naira is earmarked for overhead costs, while balance of 1.28 trillion naira is for capital projects. For Global Television, Queen Agaba reporting.
To curb the escalating insecurity across Nigeria, President Tinubu has approved the establishment of a National Forest Guard system and ordered the recruitment of over 130,000 armed operatives to secure the country's 1,129 forest reserves. The initiative, approved during the expanded Federal Executive Council meeting, mandates each state to recruit between 2,000 and 5,000 forest guards based on their capacity. The recruitment and training will be supervised by the Office of the National Security Advisor and the Ministry of Environment. Over now to the Nigerian Senate has called on the federal government and relevant security agencies to secure the release of Kogi monarch Oba James Ogunyade, who was abducted in his palace by criminal elements in the early hours of Thursday. The Upper Legislative Chamber equally urged local and state government to raise up to their responsibilities to ensuring the safety of lives and properties under their jurisdiction. Here is Uyi Agbomofuigbe's report. We apologize, that report will be brought in our subsequent bulletin. The Governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, has reiterated his administration's commitment to strengthening interagency cooperation for enhanced security across the state. The governor stated this while receiving the Assistant Inspector General of Police, AIG Kanayo Uzoagbu, who is on a familiarization tour of Zone 9 Umahia. Amarachi Ibe tells us more. We apologize, that report will be brought in our subsequent bulletin. The federal government has commenced a comprehensive review of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund (NEL-Fund) operations across universities. This followed allegations of fraud in the disbursement of the student loan, which has elicited outrage across the country. The Nigerian Senate has commenced moves to pass the Federal Capital Territory 2025 budget of 1.78 trillion naira. Leader of the Senate, Opeyemi Bamidele, led the debate on the bill after President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, read the letter urging the upper legislative chamber to pass the budget. Queen Agaba tells us more.
The total sum of 1,803,823,708,392 naira only.
After the debate, senators unanimously passed the bill for second reading and thereafter referred to the Senate Committee on FCT to revert back in 1 week.
What we need to do as the State House of Assembly of the FCT is to keep on tracking revenues and the utilization of those revenues.
You need budgetary support to sustain the infrastructural development that we have seen. And last year, when we debated the bill, I pointed out that the only way we can bring high cost of land down is by opening up new areas.
The bill, according to the Senate, seeks to, among other things, address infrastructure development and job creation, as well as other critical sectors like education, health, agriculture, etc.
For the service of the Federal Capital Territory Abuja for the financial year commencing from 1st day of January and ending on the 31st day of December 2025. Second reading read.
A breakdown of the bill shows that 150 billion naira is for personnel cost, 343 billion naira is earmarked for overhead costs, while balance of 1.28 trillion naira is for capital projects. For Global Television, Queen Agaba reporting.
Governor Hyacinth Ali of Benue State has called for assistance in facilitating the return of internally displaced persons, IDPs, to their homes. Alia made the call at the North Central Regional Consultation on the harmonization of the National Disbursement, Demobilization and Reintegration Framework in Makadi. You are watching the live broadcast of AM News. When AM News returns, U.S. President Donald Trump says no progress on Ukraine until he meets Putin. Details coming shortly, plus business and sports stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is AM News. Thank you for staying with us. In business, the House of Representatives has urged the Federal Ministry of Finance and the Nigeria Customs Service to provide a detailed explanation of the methodology and criteria used in determining the 2% import surcharge remittance. They further called for the publication of a transparent framework for calculating and implementing the surcharge in line with the provision of the Raw Material Research and Development Council Act 2022. Here's Queen Agaba as she completes the story.
The House directed the Federal Ministry of Finance to ensure the accurate calculation and immediate remittance of all outstanding arrears of the 2% import surcharge to the Raw Materials Research and Development Council. This resolution followed the adoption of a motion moved by Honorable Aliu Abdullahi, who expressed concern over persistent irregularities in the calculation and remittance of the surcharge to the RMRDC. He noted that at present, the council is being paid a negligible amount of 0.05% with undefined sources, while warning that the lack of transparency and accountability in the remittance process undermines the intent and provisions of Section 12, Subsection 1, Subsection B of the RMRDC Act.
Worried that these irregularities or discrepancies, the lack of clarity created in the disbursement of the fund, arbitrarily void the provision or the law and have greatly hampered the development of the nation and continued to serve as a clog in the wheel of progress.
In a separate resolution, the House also directed the Federal Ministry of Health and the Nigeria Center for Disease Control (NCDC) and the Primary Healthcare Development Agency to enforce mandatory diphtheria immunization testing and treatment in healthcare facilities across all 774 local government areas of the country. Furthermore, the House tasked the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation to intensify public sensitization campaigns on the dangers, symptoms, and modes of transmission of diphtheria in a bid to curb its spread and prevent further fatalities. This followed the adoption of a motion of urgent public importance moved by Honorable Beatrice Lowry, who lamented that diphtheria continues to thrive in Africa due to low vaccination coverage. He observed that the disease remains virtually absent in countries such as the United States and those in Europe, where vaccination rates are high, stressing that diphtheria primarily threatens unvaccinated individuals, especially those who travel internationally or come in contact with infected persons.
That from May 2022 to February 2025, Nigeria has reported 41,978 suspected cases of diphtheria from Bauchi, Borno, Jigawa, Kaduna, Katsina, with Kano and Yobe states accounting for the highest number, 24,062 and 5,330 respectively.
The House of Representatives also passed bills to amend the North, Central, South-South, Southwest, and Southeast Development Commission Act 2025.
Consider the report on a bill for an act to amend the North Central Development Commission Act 2025 and for related matters and approve clauses 1 to 4, explanatory memorandum, and the long title of the bill.
The bill is expected to pave the way for the appointment of additional executive directors to bolster administrative efficiency within the regional bodies. For Global Television, Queen Agaba reporting.
A bill seeking to stop all government agencies from buying foreign-made cars has passed second reading on the floor of the Senate. The bill, which was presented by Senator Patrick Owobeze, was referred to the Senate Committee on Public Procurement to report back in 4 weeks. Kike Lomo Okere completes the story.
In his lead debate, Senator Patrick Owobeze says when the bill is passed, it will bar all ministries, departments, and agencies from patronizing foreign-made vehicles and mandates them to buy only locally manufactured ones. He added that this move will create more jobs opportunity for the teeming youth and increase the country's gross domestic product. Senator Owobeze added that the country will save costs if the President, National Assembly, members, governors, ministers, and top government functionaries patronize locally made automobiles.
Unfortunately, over the years, we have failed to institutionalize the use of indigenous products, brands, and services in Nigeria, and have instead glorified foreign goods of no particular superior quality. This failure has and is being felt in no less a sector than our economy.
After the debate, Deputy President of the Senate, Jibril Barau, who presided over the session, noted that if passed, the bill will be among the things that will stabilize the Nigerian economy and preserve the country's foreign exchange.
Bill for the art to make it mandatory for ministries, departments, and agencies, including the Senate, to give priority to local manufacturers and indigenous automobile companies in procurement process and for related matters 2025. Second reading taken.
Kike Lomo Okere, Global Television News.
The Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Abubakar Bagudu, says the global economic community and multilateral financial institutions are placing increased confidence in Nigeria's economy due to the bold reforms initiated by President Bola Tinubu's administration. Bagudu made the remark in a statement signed by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, noting that the economic decisions taken by the administration are already yielding dividends, attracting investor interest and strengthening Nigeria's fiscal position. On foreign news now, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa will meet U.S. counterpart Donald Trump in Washington on Wednesday, 21st May 2025, to discuss bilateral, regional and global issues of interest. Tensions have been rising for months over a range of policy issues, culminating this week in the United States resetting a first group of white Afrikaners that Trump claims are facing persecutions in South Africa. The visit provides a platform to reset the strategic relationship between the two countries. South Sudan's government has denied that President Salva Kiir had died following online speculations. The long-serving 73-year-old leader has long been dogged for rumors of ill health, but he has been pictured in recent months meeting, visiting dignitaries and ordering a series of dramatic government reshuffles. Kiir has also moved decisively against his longtime rival and the current first vice president, Riek Machar, placing him under house arrest and detaining several of his allies. U.S. President Donald Trump says that he did not expect progress in Ukraine until he meets his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, who did not show up to talk with Kyiv in Turkey. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky flew to Ankara on Thursday after daring Putin to show up and negotiate directly to prove he was serious about peace. Putin had proposed direct talks, the first since he immediately aftermath of his invasion in Ukraine in February 2022, but Russia sent a lower-level delegation. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said UK will begin talks with other countries on return hubs for failed asylum seekers. Starmer is under pressure to cut the number of irregular migrants arriving on UK shores, many in small boats, amid the rising popularity of the hard-right and anti-immigrant reform UK party. And now over to sports news now. The Nigerian Olympic Committee has launched a new safeguarding initiative, a mental health platform, ahead of the 22nd National Sports Festival in Ogun State. The initiative includes the unveiling of a comprehensive safeguarding handbook and the introduction of Safe Space, a dedicated platform designed to promote athlete welfare, provide psychological support, and strengthen protective measures across Nigeria's sporting landscape. Nottingham foreign striker Taiwo Owoniyi has awoken from an induced coma after undergoing surgery to repair a serious abdominal injury. Owoniyi had the first part of the surgery on Monday after sustaining a ruptured intestine during a match. And now, as we end the Global TV AM News, let's take a quick look at our top stories again. The Senate has approved the confirmation of 5 resident electoral commissioners for the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. And in business, the Nigerian Senate has called on the federal government and relevant security agencies to secure the release of a Kogi monarch, Oba James Ogunyade, who was abducted in his palace by criminal elements in the early hours of Thursday. And on the foreign scene, U.S. President Donald Trump says that he did not expect progress on Ukraine until he meets his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, who did not show up to talks with Kyiv in Turkey. And finally, in sport, Nottingham Forest striker Taiwo Owoniyi has awoken from an induced coma after undergoing surgery to repair a serious abdominal injury. And that's it on Global TV AM News. A quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen by using @GlobalTVNG. You can download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to keep track of our broadcast. I am Jumai Manson. Thank you for watching. Global Morning continues in a bit. Stay tuned.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road.
Do you know that Global Television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch Global Television real-time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to Global Television.
Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
What is your problem? What's your problem? We're on the road.
Do you know that Global Television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch Global Television real-time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to Global Television.
Welcome back, and just in case you're just joining us, this is still Global Morning here on Global Television. Well, Nigeria carries a significant global burden of malaria, accounting for a substantial portion of cases and deaths worldwide. Malaria is a leading cause of death in the country, particularly among children and pregnant women. Transmission occurs year-round, with the highest incidence in the northern and northeastern region of the country. Well, looking at all of this, trying to even understand what malaria is all about, even this morning. But first, let's even take a look at a video of Nigerian Senate position even on malaria, where they had to talk about establishment of an agency that will be in charge of malaria. But before we get to that video and try to look at this, but let me even come back to Jumai, even here in the studio. Malaria, I know that where you are not prone to malaria. Of course, you have your immune system is super. People that have your immune system is super. And malaria, where you see black beauty, it doesn't come feed from them. Because I've never heard you break down on malaria before. So
Really?
I'm just saying.
Well, you know, a doctor friend of mine says it's not all mosquito bites that leads to malaria. I hope you're aware.
Okay, some leads to
Nothing. Sometimes it's just, it's not all mosquito bite. It takes a particular mosquito to actually to have that bite for you to have malaria. But in some countries they don't even talk about malaria. Like in America, for instance, malaria is long gone, eradicated long ago. I'm sorry, we're still going back and forth. Maybe because we're in the tropical area when it comes to a lot of now that it's raining now, there's going to be lots and lots of malaria popping up and there. But fine, I'm happy with the step the government is taking when it comes to this issue, and the committee that will be set up to eradicate malaria, because really it's a serious issue when it comes to children and of course adults at the same time.
Well, my concern is even the fact that we try to regionalize mosquitoes. People from the north central and northeast and northern part of Nigeria, northeastern part of Nigeria, and the north central has a higher proportion of mosquito bites. But I think that because probably we've not seen the other shades of mosquito in the southern part of Nigeria. And the mosquito we call the tiger mosquito. I don't know if it is taxonomized around mosquito, but we call it locally a tiger mosquito.
So why?
If it stings you, as if a tiger, you're being bitten by a tiger.
Very funny. But basically, malaria is something that should be taken very seriously.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned from that lead, it has led to a lot of death, if not properly handled. And you know how it is now, because a lot of people are trying to save costs when it comes to healthcare. People tend to self-medicate, which is a very mass killer when it comes to issues of malaria. People, a little symptom, someone will just think that once you're having a headache, oh, malaria. They don't know that maybe you're fatigued and you need rest. So there needs to be a lot of awareness when it comes to this, because when there was COVID-19, people could actually view both as the same. The same symptoms for COVID is what you have with malaria. So people were actually treating malaria instead of COVID. So I think a lot of awareness needs to be done when it comes to this, and of course self-medicating around all of that, because a little headache, a little body pain, the person just says, it's malaria. So for it to be eradicated, we need that awareness, and the right drugs need to be done and established.
Well, the Nigerian Senate have also come out at this point to also help to salvage the situation by establishing national malaria eradication agencies that will help look into specifically malaria issues. But let's even take a look at the video of what Nigerian Senate are saying even as of yesterday. Let's take a look.
Malaria impact on infant mortality shows the impact on families and the impact it has where the young are most vulnerable. This bill will focus our attention on eradicating malaria, or at least in the first instance, reducing the impact in terms of death and in terms of sickness amongst the Nigerian people.
It's not merely a public health issue. It is a structural crisis that impairs maternal health, drains economic productivity, and impedes national development. It accounts for approximately 11% of maternal mortality in Nigeria. contributing to severe anemia, miscarriages, stillbirths, infant deaths, tragic outcomes that disproportionately affect our most vulnerable citizens. Nigeria cannot come to lead the world in Malaria deaths. Our vectors are evolving, our parasites are adapting, so must our institutional responses. A fragmented structure cannot confront a mutating threat. We need a unified, science-driven, and legislative-backed institution with a singular mandate to end malaria in Nigeria. Mr. President, the time has come for this nation to demonstrate the political will, urgency, and resolve that malaria eradication demands. Let this bill be our collective legacy. A line in the sand, marking the point where Nigeria stood up, not just to treat malaria, but to end it.
To establish National Agency for Malaria Eradication and for related matters, 2025 second reading taken. The bill is referred to the Committee on Health to report back within 4 weeks.
All right. Now, looking at that, it's a bill seeking to establish the National Agency for Malaria Eradication, and it's called NAME, N-A-M-E, National Agency for Malaria Eradication. And it has passed its second reading, interestingly. But one will begin to ask questions like, has this bill not overstayed its welcome? Is it not late on arrival? Looking at the fact that malaria has become an inherent thing even in the country. It has killed more people than even COVID-19. The rate of people lose their lives due to malaria attacks in the country. And because a lot of people are not exposed to a lot of technological gadgets and the ability to get first aid and first-hand treatment to fight malaria. You don't have the nets in remote communities. So we fall back to some of our traditional belief systems, which is to go and put your face inside of a boiled water where you have herbs inside the hot water. And Juba, the way you sounded there is as if you've more experience in this field than I.
Very funny. Of course, we see all of these things when we see trado doctors who tell you that you need to find all of these roots, which of course the medical practitioners would tell you is dangerous to kidney and all of that. But a lot of people believe in this trado medicine much more than the English, the Orthodox and all of that. But at the same time, that's why I said the awareness needs to be out there for the eradication to fully come into place. Because most of these deaths that are happening in malaria is due to self-medication. You'd be surprised. A lot of people have decided to self-medicate, wrong prescriptions, and at the same time, a lot of people know that malaria is it's like a common thing here in Nigeria. Any little fever, any little headache, any little it's malaria, go to the pharmacy, and then the next thing you know, a prescription is given, whether it's right or wrong, without checking the weight of the individual, it is already given. So it's just unfortunate that this is where we are. And funny enough, sometimes it helps, and sometimes it cures the individual, and sometimes it doesn't, which is the fast-leading death that you just read now when it comes to children and, of course, adults. So really, this particular institute that has been created, I'm sure it's going to do a lot when it comes to curbing this particular health hazard, which is malaria.
But Juma, again, I think we have a National Institute for Malaria Regulation and Control,
yes, we do.
And all of this. Would this become multiplicity of, in terms of agencies and their roles in terms of combating malaria? Again, that's on one hand. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, we're looking at also the perspective where the Barrow is saying that there will be a public hearing on this matter come June 2025. This is just May, that's next month. The urgency of malaria, one should have been thought at this point that we should be declaring a state of emergency in the fight against malaria to ensure that we eradicate malaria. I know that the vision is around, okay, in 5 years' time, we should have been talking less about malaria and its harmful effect in Nigeria. But as it stands right now, I think June is too late. The Senate should please review itself, and at least the public hearing should be like something like tomorrow.
Yes,
as soon as possible.
Very important.
Because the rate at which Nigerians are losing their lives due to the mosquito bites it's alarming.
Yes, it is.
Now, when you get to remote communities, especially in riverine communities, we're entering into the raining season, where flood is going to be, by the NIMET prediction, the flood outlook doesn't seem like what is going to be nice this year.
Worse than what happened
So for some states, they are not even prepared for the flood. We're still trying to recover from last year's flood, where we saw what happened in Bayelsa, we saw what happened in
That was in
Kogi State.
2022.
Not just last year.
But it was worse in 2022 when, of course, you could see bodies coming out of the grave due to that flood. It was bad.
Yeah.
I told you I visited Bayelsa not quite long, just a few months ago. I visited Bayelsa, and you can imagine the havoc that flood caused on houses alone. People have not moved on from it. The houses have not moved. Beautiful houses that are actually condemned at the moment. It's not what it used to. It's bad. People have not actually recovered from it. So it's a lot when it comes to that. And I'm looking at the malaria. Yeah, you are right. I think June 25th is a long time. I think they have to hasten this, because malaria is something that is deadly. And people do not understand the gravity of what this is all about. We just feel, it's just malaria. People just say, that's how people say it. It's just malaria. But awareness needs to be done for people to understand that it's a very serious matter. It has led to a lot of deaths. And of course, if you do not take precautionary measures like the mosquito net, which is very important. I know someone, I don't want to mention her name, but she knows I'm talking to her. She says, Juma, I can't use net, it suffocates me. So it's better what I do is that I just spray the house with insecticide, go out and then come back, and that is it. So because some people cannot sleep under the mosquito.
And there's this narrative that if you turn on your AC, it kills mosquitoes automatically. I don't know how correct
For those
it
that
is.
do not have ACs, then what do you want to do?
And you turn on your phone.
And then
you
high
turn on
electricity tariff, you want to pay for that?
Well, I'm not the mouthpiece of mosquito agitators. Do you mind? let me borrow from your word. The last time I checked, I worked with Ibrahim Bill, and so let's just stay with that. But then looking at all of this conversation around mosquito, it's something that we can't wish away.
No,
we can't wish it away. It's something we need to confront head up and head on. We need to look at this critically and look at it openly and try to understand the integrity and the importance of eradicating mosquitoes.
Very
even
important.
in the river. My concern is the riverine communities. If the floods come right now, coupled with the fact that the grounds are still wet, it's going to evoke more mosquitoes. And they know, because these are endoparasites, they'll begin to feed on mammals. And once they keep feeding, they keep moving from one location to the other. We have high rate of fever. The rain is going to come with a lot of wind that will heighten the level of fevers in riverine communities, coupled with what they've been experiencing before, but it will now become double. Now, in not two riverine communities, let's say in interlands right now, the conversation is not even different, because there are forests within those places. Again, most of our gutters, our drainage systems in the country are nothing to write home about. Some communities don't even have drainage. When you get to some interior community, rural development, rural communities, even within the Federal Capital Territory, you realize that there are no drainages. So what they do is that they finish washing their stuff, they pour it on the road. Now, this is a raining season. It will now wash back to them. And this stench of all of this now, it will now bring us to that point where we begin to ask, are we ready for the rain? We are talking about mosquito. Are we ready to actually have that conversation? It's not just to give beautiful and fancy name like NAME, a National Agency for Malaria Eradication. Now, it's a very beautiful nomenclature, but then we need to ask, if this organization kickstarts today, what is the time frame for malaria to be eradicated in Nigeria? What is the time frame? Should we give this organization 3 years, 2 years, or even a month?
I think we have a long way to go when it comes to that curbing malaria in Nigeria. It has taken, I told you that some countries that do not even talk about malaria is eradicated in most countries, but unfortunately, do we have the right gadgets when it comes to that eradication? Do we have the awareness in which we can actually give to individuals? Do we have all of these things put into place, the right drugs? So, well, I think that will be food for thought for another day. But let's just sit back and see what June 25th holds and what this is all about, right, Godwin?
Most definitely.
All right, let's quickly go on a very quick break. Global Morning continues shortly. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Well, let's delve into the second conversation for this morning. Well, let me even go through this so that I'll put it rightly in perspective. Well, the Nigerian Senate has called on the federal government and relevant security agencies to secure the release of a Kogi monarch, Oba James Ogunyade, who was adopted in his palace by criminal elements in the early hours of Thursday. The upper legislative chamber equally urged local and state governments to rise up to their responsibilities by ensuring the safety of lives and properties under their jurisdiction. These are some of the resolutions reached after a brief debate on a motion presented on the floor by Kogi West Senator Sunday Karimi on Thursday. In his lead debate, Senator Karimi expressed shock at the audacity of the criminal elements to have kidnapped the Obalohun of Ololoke from his palace in Yegba local government area of Kogi State. The Kogi West lawmaker, however, explained that the kidnappers are yet to reach out to the family of the monarch or make their demand for a ransom. Well, at this point, let's take a look at the plenary of the Senate on this discourse. Then we'll come back to the studio to delve add flesh to the conversation, please. Let's take a look.
Which took place in the early hours of today, Thursday, 15th May 2025. The House also noted that the shocking event took place when suspected kidnappers stormed the palace of the referred second-class chief around 12 a.m., shooting sporadically into the air before whisking the traditional ruler away to an unknown location. A situation which has caused unprecedented tension in the communities as fears mount over its safety. We further note that Okoloke, which is a border town to Kwara State, is a very peaceful settlement that harbors both Hausas and Fulani settlers, and they have been living together in harmony until recently that criminal elements filter into the community to perpetuate this act. Aware that the security agencies are yet to release an official statement on the incident, however, local vigilante groups and concerned residents have begun combing the area in search of clues that will facilitate the release of the monarch. Concerned that this is yet another incident of kidnapping in the country with unclear motive, as no demand for ransom has been made yet. As such, urgent steps must be taken by the relevant security agencies to ensure the safe release of the monarch.
Security agencies in the country, to, as a matter of urgency, deploy their security arsenals to secure the immediate release of the monarch from his abductors. Those in favor of this prayer, please say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Commend the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces for giving directives to the National Security Advisor to establish forest guards across the country to curb the rising spate of insecurity in the country and to draw Mr. President's attention to the Nigerian Forest Security Service Establishment Bill 2025, recently passed by the National Assembly, awaiting presidential assent. This bill can be brought back to accommodate the President's line of thought regarding the setting up of the proposed forest guard. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Additional prayer.
All right, and there you have all of those conversation around Kogi State, where the Kogi West Senator has come out to also speak out on this matter. But then let's try to add fresh to this conversation and bring you a perspective on our one penny on this conversation. First, I want to say that it is sad to hear that a situation of this magnitude is happening in Nigeria, our dear country, our beloved country. Now, it is really sad to hear that this is happening in Kogi. One would want to ask at this point, what is going on in the North Central, what is going on in Benue, what's going on in Plateau, what's going on in Nasarawa, and all the states that forms the North Central of Nigeria. It's quite a condemnable situation what we have there in Kogi State. But there are a lot of things that I want to even look at in this particular conversation. The first of which is looking at the whole incident of a traditional ruler, a monarch, being adopted from his palace. Now, it really calls for concern. Now, let's try to paint this again. Adopters, in their numbers or in their, not just in their numbers or in their few or in persons, drove or walked to the palace of a traditional leader, a monarch in this instance, in this stance, in the Yagba local government area of Kogi State, and went straight to the palace and had picked the traditional ruler of that community, bundled him out, placed him inside a truck or a van or a car or a bike, then they left. First, their security personnel, it is believed that there is security personnel in most palaces. If you don't have security personnel in those palaces, at least it would be fair to say that we have palace guards in most palaces. You have servants in most palaces. Except these are just things we see on the Nollywood and the various Nigerian movie scene or the international movie scene of what the paint royalty to be. But using the Oni of Ife's palace, which some of us have been opportune to see, we could interpret it to be you pass through a guard, you enter through the palace gate, you get to, before you meet the king, you get to the palace itself.
It's a process.
Before you now get to, now you pass through the gate. You went to where the king, the monarch is. You went to his room, probably with a gun or with a knife or machete or what have you. Then you went and picked the monarch. You came back to the gate, opened the gate, and zoomed off out of a community. That one would believe that at each border, or which at every border of exit within a local government, you find police officers at each border. I don't want to believe that. Okay, let's even take the instance of you didn't go through the normal routes. You went through the forest, and there are no Amotekun, there are no vigilantes, there are no hunters that saw movement all through to call the attention of villagers that something is happening. Something is happening within that. I want to begin to wonder, how did we get to this point where we begin to talk about monarch being adopted from his palace?
You know, just to add to what you've said, it just shows that we do not have respect for tradition anymore. That's number one. It takes, that's pure guts to go into a palace of a monarch. That's a traditional ruler there. And you just go, and I'm not saying this because I'm from Kogi State, so be warned. But it's just unfortunate that this is where we have found ourselves in Nigeria. And a lot of these things happen. And like you mentioned, you pass through the gate, you pass through security guards and all of that. You don't just walk into a palace. Are you kidding me? There's a procedure, it's a process. So what must have played out, we do not know. You know, for an outsider to come in, there definitely will be an insider. So maybe one of these abductors must have been in, maybe they must have said, do not move, just act normal, but at least they would have said something. Because it's a traditional ruler, he doesn't just go out on his own, he has to have people. But what played out is what we are yet to find out what played out. But it's just unfortunate that this is where we are. This is what it is now. That individuals, will I say, quote and unquote, miscreants can just go into, can just walk into anywhere and pick these traditional rulers up with no respect for tradition. Are you kidding me? But this is what it is. And we were talking about the guards in the palace or the traditional home of these traditional rulers. Do they have sophisticated guns? They do not have the AK-47. They don't have that. They have dang guns. These are traditional individuals. They do not have all these sophisticated weapons. So, of course, when an adopter comes in well armed with AK-47 and all of these armories, he will get away with it. It's just, do you know what it is? You just open fire. One gun is enough. These are individuals with cutlasses and all of that. Whoever suspects his right mind that they'll be adopted with individuals, they will come. You cannot come alone in that kind of area. You must be a threat. That the adopters are the way. Do you know what it is to come with armories like that? It's just unfortunate that this is where we are now in Nigeria. A lot of these miscreants feel they can just walk into anywhere and get away with it because they have informants.
But you might even trying to look at this again, as sad as it is, when we talk about miscreants invading the palace and making away with the monarch, as if it's a parcel. You bundle him and you take him out of the palace. Now, it's a sad tale to begin with. And there's a tweak to the angle of I'm trying to head right now, which is the fact that Nigerian Senate will now sit and mandate the governors of states and local government chairmen and also security agencies to wake up to the responsibility in discharging its function and responsibility, which is to safeguard the lives and properties of Nigeria. That's where my own take even this morning comes from, because when we look at all of this conversation, one begins to ask this morning, how then did we get to this point where the Senate will now begin to urge the state governor to be alive with its responsibility? Now, when you're taking the oath of office, excuse me, Mr. Governor, you were part of the thing you swore was to protect the life of every Kogite, of every Kogite. That's part of the thing you swore in. Yes. You shouldn't be reminded of your responsibility. Now, we understand clearly that the exclusive legislative list has given room for the governor of a state. It has deprived the governor of a state over the security architecture and overview of the state. But then, because largely the security agency of various states is being still controlled by the federal government, going by the exclusive legislative list, but by the concurrent list, the state can still beef up security and ensure that the security votes that it gets, it's able to also, within its confines, ensure the lives and properties of the good people of Kogi is being protected. But then at this point, we're not seeing any of this happening.
No, we're not.
The rate at which people lose their lives in the North Central, one begin to ask,
it's alarming.
Has the North Central become a focal point or a near theater for a war zone?
You know, it's alarming. It's just unfortunate that this is where we are. Like you mentioned at the beginning of your preamble, you mentioned Plateau State, you mentioned Benue, you now Kogi, and you know this is how it starts, little by little. And you know, Kogites, it's action. They don't talk much. I'm not trying to promote violence or all of that, but that is how it is. Once it's just a little tweak that will cause problems, because the monarch is someone that, with reports, he's someone that is loved. He's an amazing individual. So we heard, but it's just unfortunate that there were the security agents that were there at the palace at that point, they were not well armed, and that was why these abductors got away with it and actually swept him out of the palace. It's just unfortunate, but like I mentioned, this is where we are. We keep going back and forth in this matter. For a cleric, we've heard cases of cleric imams being abducted. We've seen cases where pastors and his whole family are being abducted. We've seen issues like this. So if we realize that
even generals been adopted. You forgot that part of the story.
And a retired general has been adopted. Military personnel have been adopted, like the recent that happened. The issue that happened in Borno State, soldiers and, of course, officers and soldiers that were adopted in Marte. The report that happened. We see all of these things. We know that Nigeria right now, there is so much insecurity, and it's so painful, it's hurtful that we do not have precautionary measures in all of these things. We know that all of these individuals are prominent individuals. They need protection. I'm not saying that the normal Nigerian, like we, the common Nigerian, because we do not have traditional rulers and all of that, do not need protection. We do. But at least these are individuals that these abductors tend to get resource from. You'll be surprised how much they'll be telling you, they'll mention for his release. You'll be shocked. They call monies like, you hear 100 million, 200 million, 300. You hear
they've gone past 200 million. Now you're talking about 400
million. So that's what I'm telling you. This is like a meal ticket for them. When you hear of all of these elites, traditional rulers, monarchs, kings, and all of that, these are like a cash cow. But it's unfortunate that this is where we are in Nigeria. Like for me, I feel we need precautionary measures need to be taken into place. And this is where, whether we like it or not, or we believe it or not, there's so much insecurity all around. It's not just in Plateau, it's not just in Benue, it's not just in Kogi at the moment. It's everywhere. And why? Because, you know, of course, we know what it is when it comes to terrorists, when it comes to all of these issues making rounds. But we hope it's going to be curbed really soon. And we hope it's nipped in the bud. And it's not, I've always been a positive individual. I love Nigeria, that's the truth. But at the same time, the needful needs to be done to protect lives and properties. We shouldn't remind those in authority that you need to beef up this. You know, when you were sworn into office, that was one of the criteria to protect lives and property. So for this to happen, this reoccurrence, and then the House of Assembly reminding individuals what they are supposed to know, you know, some people will just laugh at it, but at the same time, it's really pathetic. It's very sad.
For me, I think again that even as it stands right now, we should be able to take full responsibility for some of the things that's happening in the country. And by taking full responsibility, I mean that we should call the president even to order and call the various serving chiefs and also the Minister of Defense of the country to know what's going on across. Even the NSA, last visit the NSA went to Benue State. We saw the outcome. They did stop all of the
no, we didn't. That's what I'm telling you, Godwin. That's what I'm telling. This is where we are now.
Probably, Juma.
This is where we are. We keep going back and forth.
We're playing politics with people's lives.
Exactly.
I just think we're playing politics with people's lives. At this point, one should think that we should be able to ask certain individuals to please, if you can't discharge your primary mandate, please vacate the office.
Step aside.
Let's know people that can deliver on this. So we won't play politics with people's lives. The level at which people just yesterday, another death roll has come out. We've read another death roll in Plateau State.
Exactly.
Just yesterday, we've had another case of death. These are reported cases of death. What about the unreported cases of death in the various states that is happening?
Very true.
And I've asked this question. If Boko Haram can fund military jets, military drones right now, because what you've heard right now is that Boko Haram are beginning to acquire military drones for God knows what, when it's not a near war situation. Now, if the Boko Harams can do all of this, why are we not also being a step ahead of some of these things? Lakurawa group, what they call them, that have been terrorizing part of the north. This group did not just start yesterday.
No, they didn't.
They took their time to plan. What happens to information gathering? What happens to information dissemination? And what happens to full implementation of manpower to ensure that we eradicate all of these things before it gets out of hand? I'm pained because at first, although I'm not supposed to act this way or reacting this way by adding my emotions to it, but lives are going on a daily basis. Juma.
Yes, they are.
I would not say that we should wait till it gets to your brother before we now begin to react. People are losing their lives every day in remote communities. Right now, we're talking about a monarch. Now, imagine a situation as this, where adopters can go to the palace of a
without being stopped, because we didn't hear.
Picked up the monarch.
Yes, they did.
In this particular instance, you mentioned pastors and imam and
even generals.
We can say that because the pastors and the imams are not, they don't go about with guards, they don't go about with a lot of protective mechanism. But here you have a monarch who is the custodian of culture and tradition of the land. And is being protected. I believe that in Yagba local government, or Yagba, I don't know how correct that is, it's not the biggest local government in Kogi State.
No, it's not.
Which means that if you look at its geographical mass of that state, it can tell us there, for a drive out of that
particular local government will not be anything less than 50 minutes to drive out of that community. So what is the security architecture around communities in Kogi State? Now this speaks volume in terms of how we are committed to protecting lives of Nigerians, safeguarding the lives and properties of Nigeria. If this can happen to a monarch who is semi-fortified in his palace, both spiritually, physically, and otherwise. Juma, don't look at me that way. Most monarchs are fortified spiritually.
Really? I do not know.
Of tradition of the land. So, if this can happen to a monarch, how safe are the people within the communities that are not privileged to have all of these structures of a palace guard, of security, of somebody manning the gates for you? How safe are members? Now, this would take us to a point where when these begin to happen and we don't see, we see waiting for the adopters to call, make their demands, like what the senator said, they're still waiting for the adopters to make their demands. In such a situation where we have a community that is not 50 meters drive away from the town, one would have expected at this point that all borders will be shut down and proper search will be carried out, except they said, we were saying that they came in through a form of a chopper came to pick the monarch out of that place. But then again, for communities, residents of that community, this would throw them into a state of tension, fear, torsion, and contortion. Those three states, when people begin to live at this point, sleeping, if my monarch can be arrested, I can be adopted. Who am I?
Exactly. So the worst thing is living in fear. You know, that's the worst thing can ever happen to an individual.
And we're trying to depopulate the metropolis. We're trying to depopulate the urban areas. Then people go back to their farms, go back to their communities,
exactly,
to make ends meet and serve as a means to supply back to the urban communities for certain fee. Now, with all of this, you will tell people, hey, the rural communities are not safe because your monarch can also be adopted.
So you can also, you as an individual can also be adopted because no one is safe.
Like what's happening in our forest right now.
Exactly.
You are afraid to even go into the forest for fear of being adopted. Right now, I don't know how long the Chibok case has been right now. But you know how many forests that people cannot even venture into for fear of being adopted.
That's true.
Because these are supposed to be reserved communities. These are supposed to be reserved areas. But right now, you can't even delve, you can't even enter those forests.
No, you cannot.
Probably when you get to everything sounds like price of bomb in the forest. Because when you hear the whole, when you hear whistles in the forest, and you don't know what is crying, you don't know what is whistling, you don't know what's going on. And it sounds like, oh God, I'm the next victim for the price of bomb. And all of this conversation, I think that we should go past this line of trying to ask the governors to please be alive to your responsibility. We should go past telling the president to come out with all the security agencies to come out with all their arsenals, all their bulldozers to go after this. We should go past this line and let certain individuals tender resignation if they can't deliver all of this.
Like I've always mentioned, I said we all have a role to play in society, each and every one of us, whether you're in position or you're not. But you should understand that once you are in an office, it's not you anymore. The truth is you represent the people. And you should always have the people at the back of your mind. I shouldn't come up and remind you that these people should be your responsibility. No, that's a slap in your office. If you do not know that you're supposed to uphold that integrity of lives and property, it's very important. It's just unfortunate that this is where we are in Nigeria, and we pray that the needful is
and Kogi of all states, a conference state, very important and significant state, that if any incident start happening in Kogi, it's like something happening in Nigeria and it can spread like a wildfire. Kogi has always been on the forefront of championing the cause of good development, and also, so when things of this magnitude begin to happen, and they know that Kogi monarch can be adopted, well, it's a sad tale.
You're trying to trigger me to mention something.
Of course, I've not called the name.
I will not. Not today. Not today. I'm not going to call any name. But of course,
the good part is that we've not talked about Natasha today. So
you see, that was the trigger.
That was the trigger, but unfortunately for Godwin, I'm not going to mention, today. He mentioned it, but I'm not going to mention that today. We're just going to we're talking about the monarch now. And let's quickly go on a very quick break, and the program Global Morning continues shortly. Do not go anywhere. Stay tuned. right, you're welcome back. And if you're just tuning in, this is Global Morning. And of course, before we get to another topic of today, we're going to be looking at still on abduction. And this is 7 years since Leah Shaibu is in captivity. Her mother calls out and says her daughter would have been 22 years old. And a very unfortunate incident there. Godwin, no one actually talks about Leah Shaibu as much as we used to. You know, some people are beginning to, will I say people are beginning to forget? Or people do not understand that this is, who knows? Everyone, the speculation of maybe she has moved on, maybe she has a child now, or maybe she's now getting used to the fact that she's in captivity. All of these things in combined, but it's a very sad moment because her parents are still holding on. Her mom says she will not give up the faith or give up hope that her daughter will still come back home to them. A very unfortunate incident there. That's what abduction does. It brings separation. It brings a lot of, there's so much tension that happens, going back and forth, wondering. You just wonder. I'm sure that's what happens that is what is happening to the family of Leah Shaibu. It's just unfortunate that happened, of course. And if you're wondering, Leah Shaibu was a student of Depchi Secondary School in Chibok. And, she's part of the 110 that were abducted in 2018. A very unfortunate incident there that happened. And just the speculations of what if or what is happening or what is actually going on, Godwin. It's just unfortunate. That's what adoption does, really.
Well, Juma, looking at this adoption, and you've just triggered something in me that wants to even look at this issue. It's sad.
Very sad.
It's very sad. After how many years? 7 years.
7 years, yes.
7 years, and we're still talking about...
Since 2018.
We're still talking about adoption of Chibok girls. Well, Chibok girls adoption, is a sad tale.
Very sad tale.
It's a very discouraging and very pathetic to have that kind of conversation even on air, to talk about children that were adopted for 7 years. We still have not been able to bring them back to reunite them with their families. And this brings us to the point where we begin to ask salient questions. First is, can we once say because these children, Dapchi secondary school children, are not children of within the political class? That's why we dragged our feet to this point where we almost cared less about their whereabouts? Or can we say that because these children are not children of the elite, that's why we all went mute when it has to do with ransacking the entire forest, and if need be, burn the entire forest and to ensure the safety of these children? Again, should we then say it's because these children are not the children of the connected economy? That's why we refuse to have more elaborate conversations around this. Now, it is sad to the people of Kibaku, that is the Kibaku-speaking people of Chibok. So, first it is sad to the community, to the tribe, a tribe that is being known to be warriors. People that could they were the last tribe that were defeated by the British in terms of the...
Yes,
so this tribe, they are warriors, predominantly warriors.
Yes, they are.
So when we talk about the Kibaku people, we're talking about people that are fighters, that people that know what it means to preserve their heritage.
Yes, they do.
For people to block British from trading, these are people that you shouldn't joke with. I think for one, the government of Borno State should have been able to look at this matter again and reopen the books so that we can prevent a reoccurrence of something like this from happening. Now, if we have a situation like Chibok, where these children were adopted, what has been done in terms of the forest? Do we still say we want a forest reserve when our children are missing? Should we still say we want a forest reserve and a conservative point where 100 plus children were found missing at a point in our nascent democratical dispensation, our young democratical dispensation? 100 plus children missing. How do we tell the story to generations unborn that children were one time taken to the bush or to the forest, and till date we can't say anything about their whereabouts? We don't know if they are killed, if they are alive, if they are adopted, if they are married, if they've been sold out, if they are still in Nigerian or they are outside Nigerian. We can't even say at the moment. It's a sad tale.
The thing is, Godwin, you start by telling the next generation and the next that these individuals, these girls, were in school. They actually went to learn. They were writing their final exams. They went to school to write exams, and then at night they were adopted by these individuals, 110 of them. Until date, well, if we're going to prolong, fast forward this, hopefully, but we do not know. But Leah at the moment is one of these issues, because she actually stood out and said she will not convert to a Muslim. That's one of the reasons. That's why we all know about Leah and the issue at hand and all of that, and every other persons that are there. But it's just unfortunate that this is what it is. You mentioned a lot that maybe the reason why we are so laid back when it comes to this issue is because these children are not children of the elites or children of the connected, children of the rich when it comes to the high and mighty. We do not know. We're all in assumption when it comes to speculations where these girls are. Are they still in Nigeria? Are they outside? Because we're hearing rumors that they're in the nearby, they've shipped them out of Nigeria, they're no more in Nigeria. And then you hear rumors of some of them have children for these terrorists. Some of them who were, young, naive girls have now become mothers overnight. They are now children who now have children of their own. This is a very sad tale of where we are. This has prolonged so long now. This is 7 years. And we still wonder, and we still speculate. Some of these families, Leah's mom is going, it's something that you don't wish upon anyone. Do you know what it is for someone's child to be taken away?
You're even talking about the parents. I'm talking about the entire community. The Kibaku race, entire Kibaku, they would live with that memory for a very long time.
Their lives. It's just unfortunate that this is where we are in Nigeria, and we do not have answers to these questions. There was one song that Owomi said, "If you ask me," that is it. And truly, if you ask, who are you going to ask? Who will give you the right information to these questions? You ask yourself that what are our security agents? I will give kudos to each and every one. They are doing a lot. But do we have the right equipment? Do we have what the Americans use, or the trainings? Do we have? Have we gotten to that level yet? There were a lot of rumors around all of this, but at the same time, we pray that God continues to uphold Leah's family when it comes to, and still waiting and believing that one day, she will definitely come back home.
One day go better.
Yeah, one day go better.
Well, quite a lot of conversations to have this morning. But then I've been signaling right now that it's time to begin to pack our bags and baggages to run and leave Jumai in the studio.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Leave Jumai in the studio. But then again, it has been an interesting time here on A Global Morning.
Yes,
We've been able to bring you issues and perspective and dimensions of conversations around that's making the national dailies and information that can help you make informed decision as you start your day even this morning. But we'll leave so much also with our lined up programs for going forward. Even this morning, you will also be more informed, be more entertained, and be more abreast with current happenings in the country. But then we still, our heart still goes out to as many families that have lost their family members in Kogi State, in Benue State, in Plateau State, and across Nigeria, because it's a sad time, the trying time, like we will always say for Nigerian but these two will pass.
I like the fact that you mentioned that these two will pass, and at the same time, let's be hopeful, let's be positive. We are sure that the needful will be done. Let's continue to keep hope alive. Let's not give up. Everything is going to be fine. And don't forget, It's Global Morning is a Tag Team Friday. I am Jumai Manson, and my co-host that wears amazing glasses.
My name has not changed. It's still Godwin Sunday.
Have an amazing day.
Have an amazing day.
And from Godwin and I, we say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure. Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
The struggle with the ASU strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.